recognizes the truth he's been sensing for years, a truth that sits beneath the surface of his interactions, his relationships, and his place within society. It's the quiet realization that he has always been different, not because he wanted to be, but because something within him simply does not move the way others do. For the Sigma man, this realization arrives slowly, almost like a sunrise gently revealing what was always there. He notices that he observes the world rather than rushing to be part of it. He listens more than he speaks. He values depth where others chase distraction. And he finds authenticity in a world that often rewards performance over truth. At first, he tries to belong. He participates in conversations that don't resonate, agrees to plans that feel empty, and mirrors the behaviors people expect from him. He tries not for attention, but for acceptance, because every human being, even the most independent ones, starts with a desire to be understood. But with time, something shifts. He begins to see the subtle masks people wear, the social obligations that aren't real, the hollow expectations that drain energy but give nothing meaningful in return. He notices how people compete for approval, validation, and social points, and how none of it truly matters. He sees how many environments demand conformity, not out of unity, but out of fear of standing alone. And the Sigma by nature has always been comfortable standing alone. So he slowly steps back, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. He discovers that peace exists in the spaces where noise used to be. That solitude is not an escape, but a homecoming. That authentic connection is rare, and pretending is far more exhausting than being alone. He learns that solitude sharpens him. Independence stabilizes him, and being misunderstood is a small price to pay for living honestly in a dishonest world. This is why Sigma men never truly fit in, and why at some point in their journey they simply stop trying. Not because they think they are better than others, but because they finally understand what drains them and what frees them. And in that quiet acceptance, their life begins to unfold on their own terms, guided not by the expectations of society, but by the steady inner compass that has been waiting patiently for him to listen. Number one, he sees through social games instantly. Sigma men are highly observant. They notice the subtle power dynamics, the unspoken competition, and the emotional masks people rely on. Where others participate, the Sigma analyzes. Where others pretend, he questions. This makes group environments feel artificial to him because he cannot unsee the layers beneath the surface. His clarity becomes a barrier to fitting in. To the Sigma male, most social settings feel like a stage, one where everyone is performing some version of themselves they think will be accepted. But he sees the tension behind the smiles, the insecurity behind the loudness, and the longing behind the confidence. He doesn't judge it, but he understands it too clearly to play along. When others gather in crowds, they often seek belonging. When a Sigma steps into a crowd, he sees structure, hierarchy, and subtle signals of who is trying to impress whom. He listens to tone more than words, observes posture more than conversation, and notices intentions long before they are spoken. This ability to read the unspoken truth is both his strength and the reason he rarely feels at home in groups. While others bond over shared illusions, the Sigma connects only with authenticity. It's not that he cannot socialize, he simply refuses to dilute his awareness for the sake of fitting in. He notices when people are talking just to avoid silence, when they laugh to gain approval, and when they agree to avoid conflict. And because he cannot pretend he doesn't see these things, being part of a group often feels like stepping into a room full of mirrors, reflections everywhere, but no real direction. The Sigma's mind is wired to perceive patterns. Who dominates the conversation, who plays the victim, who subtly competes, and who silently blends into the background. He sees the power plays disguised as jokes, the manipulation wrapped in kindness, and the silent battles that unfold behind polite words. To most people, these dynamics go unnoticed. To the Sigma, they are glaring. This clarity creates a natural distance, not because he thinks he's better, but because he cannot participate in something he sees through. His presence becomes quiet, observant, and self-contained. He prefers depth over noise, truth over performance, and individuality over conformity. And so, the Sigma male slowly realizes that fitting in is impossible for someone who sees reality without the filters society depends on. He doesn't walk away because he dislikes people. He walks away because he values authenticity so deeply that staying would require him to betray himself. In a world built on pretending, the Sigma's clarity is both his gift and his isolation. He does not fit in, and he finally understands he was never meant to. Number 2, superficial conversation drains him. Small talk and trivial chatter feel exhausting. Sigma men prefer conversations with purpose, ideas, principles, and real experience. When an environment offers none of that, he naturally withdraws. It's not arrogance, it's energy conservation. For a Sigma male, words carry weight. He's never been the type to speak for the sake of noise, to fill silence just because others fear it. In fact, silence is where he thinks best. Silence is where he recharges. Silence is where he hears himself again. So when he's surrounded by meaningless talk, surface-level banter, gossip, repetitive discussions about nothing of real value, his mind instinctively shuts the door. It's not that he dislikes people, it's that his inner world requires a certain quality of interaction to stay alive. For him, a conversation is a bridge between minds, not a social obligation. Sigma men are wired for depth. They want to understand what a person believes, what they've been through, what shaped them, and what they value when no one is watching. They are drawn to people who think before they speak, who reflect on life, and who carry a sense of authenticity. So when placed in environments where the social currency is superficial small talk, he feels out of place, almost like a traveler who wandered into the wrong city. He hears conversations about trends, drama, complaints, empty bragging, and something in his spirit quietly steps back. Not because he feels superior, but because he feels disconnected. Think of it this way. A Sigma male's attention is a limited resource, not a faucet that runs endlessly. Every pointless conversation drains him, while every meaningful one fuels him. His withdrawal is simply the mind's way of protecting its own bandwidth. He's careful about what he allows into his inner circle because he knows that words can shape energy. That's why he gravitates toward thinkers, dreamers, disciplined individuals, and deep souls. People who speak with intention. When he engages fully. When he listens deeply. But when the environment offers nothing substantial, he does what Sigma men do best. He slips into the background, quietly, calmly, without making it a scene. Others may misinterpret his distance as judgment or aloofness, but the truth is much simpler. He is conserving his energy for the conversations that matter, for the rare moments when someone brings something real to the table, something that sparks his mind or speaks to his spirit. Until then, silence is his sanctuary, and withdrawal is his way of staying whole. Number 3, he values freedom more than approval. Most social groups require conformity, spoken or unspoken, and Sigma men resist this instinctively. Their independence is not a performance, it's a psychological need. They thrive in environments where they can move freely, think freely, and live without expectations. But this resistance to conformity is not rooted in rebellion or a desire to stand out. It comes from a deeper, quieter truth. Their internal compass has always been more reliable than the shifting rules of social circles. While many people adjust themselves to fit into groups, Sigma men adjust their environment or simply step away altogether. They understand early in life that belonging often comes with invisible contracts that ask you to dilute your individuality to maintain acceptance. And for the Sigma, that dilution feels like suffocation. This is why they drift towards solitude, not out of loneliness, but out of alignment. Solitude becomes the one place where they can breathe without feeling observed, judged, or expected to mirror someone else's idea of who they should be. In that quiet, they rediscover their power. Without the noise of group dynamics, their thoughts sharpen and their goals become clearer. The Sigma doesn't reject people, he rejects pressure. He avoids environments that demand obedience. To him, conformity is spiritually and mentally draining. But when he's granted space to think, question, and move at his own pace, he flourishes. His creativity expands, his intuition strengthens, and his problem-solving becomes precise because he isn't distracted by social politics. People often misinterpret this as aloofness, but it's self-preservation. Sigma men protect their autonomy the way others protect their reputation. They don't chase approval because approval has never been their currency. They chase truth, clarity, and freedom. Ironically, this non-attachment is what makes them magnetic, calm because they're not pretending, focused because they're not divided, and strong because they stand alone, without fear. Number 4, his authenticity makes him an outsider. Sigmas don't play roles, they don't adjust their identity to fit a setting. In a world where people often reshape themselves to be accepted, changing tone, changing values, even changing their entire personality depending on who is watching, the Sigma male stands out without trying. His presence is not loud, but it is undeniably consistent. That consistency feels unusual to people who have built their lives around performance. The Sigma does not switch masks. He does not soften his truth to make others more comfortable. He does not inflate himself to appear impressive. He simply remains aligned with who he is, regardless of the room he walks into. For most people, identity is fluid and reactive. They shift depending on the environment. At work, they are one version. With friends, another. With strangers, yet another. Their sense of self is stitched together by external validation, so they constantly adjust to maintain approval. But the Sigma operates from a deeper place, an internal compass, rather than a social mirror. His personality is not borrowed, it is rooted. This is why he can move through different environments, different social groups, and different expectations, and never lose himself. People notice this before they can even explain it. They feel that he is not trying to impress them, yet he leaves an impression. He is not trying to stand out, yet he becomes memorable. He doesn't demand attention, but attention naturally settles on him. This is the paradox of the Sigma male. His refusal to conform becomes the very thing that sets him apart. While others exhaust themselves managing perceptions, the Sigma's energy remains grounded. He doesn't waste effort pretending or performing. He doesn't bend under social pressure or mold himself to match expectations. He simply exists as himself, unfiltered, unedited, unmoved. And this authenticity has power. People sense it. They gravitate toward it because it is rare. In a world that rewards imitation, the Sigma embodies originality. In a culture obsessed with belonging, he is comfortable in solitude. He has no interest in fitting into a fake world. Instead, he chooses truth over acceptance, and in that choice he becomes unforgettable. Number 5, he learns that solitude strengthens him. Over time, the Sigma discovers that he grows faster alone than surrounded by noise. Solitude becomes more than just a break from people. It becomes a sacred environment where his mind sharpens, his spirit strengthens, and his identity becomes unmistakably his own. While others seek constant validation, the Sigma begins to understand that true evolution does not come from the crowd's approval, but from the quiet work he does when no one is watching. In that stillness, he sees himself clearly. The distractions fall away, the pressure to perform fades, and the expectations of society no longer dictate his pace or direction. Instead, he learns to hear the subtle movements of his own intuition, the quiet signals of his inner compass guiding him toward growth that cannot be manufactured in groups. Solitude gives him clarity, discipline, and focus. It strips life down to its essentials, allowing him to see what matters and what must be released. Without the noise of comparison, competition, or external opinions, the Sigma trains his mind to operate from a place of autonomy and strength. In this silence, he builds habits that elevate him. He cultivates self-discipline not to impress others, but to refine his own potential. Focus becomes his superpower. His ability to lock onto a goal with unwavering intention comes not from pressure, but from internal mastery. He realizes that he doesn't need a tribe to evolve. His evolution is an internal process. The world teaches men to rely on groups for identity, status, and purpose. But the Sigma learns that his greatest transformations occur when he is alone with his thoughts, challenges, and vision. Every breakthrough, every moment of insight, every step toward becoming the man he is meant to be is forged in the quiet crucible of solitude. And with each passing season, he understands that walking alone is not a weakness. It is the environment where his greatness is born. Number 6, he understands that belonging is not the same as being free. Most people want connection first and identity second. They look for belonging before they understand who they truly are, hoping that acceptance will shape their sense of self. But the Sigma chooses identity first, and connection only when it aligns with truth. His loyalty is not to a group or a social expectation, but to the quiet integrity of who he is becoming. This is why he walks differently, thinks differently, and moves through the world with a kind of calm independence that others rarely understand. He doesn't reject society. He simply refuses to lose himself in it. While most people bend, adjust, and reshape themselves to fit into circles that were never designed with their individuality in mind, the Sigma does the opposite. He allows life to reveal who he is, layer by layer, without forcing himself into molds that feel artificial. In time, he realizes that the pressure to belong was never about connection. It was about conformity, and conformity has nothing to do with truth. Eventually, he stops trying to belong because he understands a simple truth. It's better to stand alone in authenticity than to stand with many in falsehood. The crowd may offer noise, but rarely depth. Popularity may offer visibility, but rarely fulfillment. The Sigma learns that peace comes not from being seen, but from being aligned with himself. So he embraces solitude, not as isolation, but as a sacred space where the mind sharpens, the spirit strengthens, and the identity becomes unshakable. Connection still matters to him, but now it is chosen carefully, based on resonance, values, and truth, not convenience or fear. In the end, he discovers that the fewer people he tries to impress, the more he becomes himself. And in becoming himself, he finds the only belonging that truly matters. In the end, the Sigma man isn't defined by how well he fits into the world, but by how deeply he understands himself within it. He walks a quieter path, not because he is isolated, but because he chooses clarity over noise, truth over performance, and purpose over approval. He knows that belonging is not about blending in. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when the world misunderstands your silence. And if you resonate with this journey, if you've ever felt out of sync with the world around you, understand this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply aligned with a different rhythm, one that not everyone can hear. Stay patient with yourself, move with intention, and continue growing in the direction that feels honest to your spirit. Thank you for taking this moment to reflect, and remember, your path doesn't need an audience to be meaningful. Sometimes the most powerful men are the ones who walk quietly, but walk with purpose. Sigmas, there's something almost imperceptible in the air when you enter a room with one. It's not noise, it's not posturing. It's the quiet state of a man who knows where he stands and doesn't feel the need to announce it. In the calm of his presence, others sense something deeper. That subtle tension, that slight hesitation in someone else's voice when they speak to him. Not because he ever raises his tone, but because his very stillness says, I am here, I matter, I will not move for you. We often talk about the alpha man and the visible power he wields, the loud voice, the firm handshake, the spotlight. But the Sigma male, the man who walks his own path, outside the traditional hierarchy, carries a different kind of power. He may believe he is quiet. He may even downplay his influence. Yet in everyday life, in the choices he makes, in the energy he holds, he becomes intimidating, often without fully realizing it. This isn't about showing off. It's about authentic internal strength. It's about a man whose value doesn't depend on applause, but on his own alignment. And it's about the way the world subconsciously reacts to that alignment when you stop seeking approval, when you stop asking permission, when you reliably deliver on your commitments. People notice. They feel it, even if they cannot fully articulate why. Today, we'll explore 6 subtle signs that reveal when a Sigma male is more intimidating than he realizes. These signs aren't about flashiness. They're about consistency, inner calm, boundaries, and invisible signals. For you, whether you identify as a Sigma male or simply admire this type of masculinity. These insights will help you recognize the depth of your presence, the value of your quiet power, and perhaps show you how people already respond to you in ways you didn't imagine. So lean back, allow the voice of calm observation, and let's walk slowly through these truths together. Because when a Sigma man realizes his own weight, his impact shifts, and no one needs to raise a voice for others to feel it. Number one, he speaks less, yet when he does, people listen. A Sigma male often uses fewer words than most men around him, but when he chooses to speak, his words come from a place of clarity, not noise. This habit isn't just a personality quirk. It's rooted in psychology and social dynamics. In communication science, brevity is often associated with confidence and authority. People who speak less are perceived as more competent and emotionally intelligent because their silence signals control, not uncertainty. This makes listeners lean in, eager to decode every word that follows. Sigma males understand this instinctively. They don't waste words trying to impress others or fill awkward silences. Instead, they let silence do the heavy lifting. Research in social behavior even shows that pauses and minimal responses increase perceived dominance in group conversations. The Sigma male's restraint, therefore, becomes a silent form of leadership. His calmness in speech mirrors his calmness in thought. When he does speak, he communicates with precision, cutting straight through the noise. It's not what he says that commands attention, but the way he says it, measured, thoughtful, and free of emotional clutter. This kind of verbal discipline is both rare and powerful in a world obsessed with oversharing. Others can feel it. They sense a gravity in his presence because he doesn't compete for attention. He draws it naturally. His silence unsettles those who rely on loudness for validation, and his words often carry more weight simply because they are few. The result is quiet dominance. It isn't aggression or manipulation, but a deeper, almost primal signal of self-assurance. People subconsciously recognize that this man speaks only when it matters, and that makes them listen more carefully. Over time, his concise communication builds respect and sometimes even intimidation, not because he seeks control, but because he embodies it. In essence, the Sigma male's speech pattern reflects his entire worldview: simplicity over showmanship, depth over drama. His clarity cuts through confusion like a blade through fog. And while others talk to be heard, he speaks to be understood. It's this deliberate contrast between his silence and his substance that defines his mysterious allure and makes his presence unforgettable. Number two, he keeps commitments and misses nothing. In a world filled with broken promises, half-finished goals, and empty declarations, the Sigma male stands apart for one simple but powerful reason. He keeps his word. Whether it's a quiet commitment made to himself in the middle of the night or a promise to a friend or colleague, his reliability becomes his unspoken signature. This habit isn't born from a desire to impress others, but from deep self-respect and discipline. Research in behavioral psychology shows that consistency is one of the strongest markers of personal integrity, and individuals who follow through on commitments tend to be perceived as more trustworthy, capable, and emotionally stable. A Sigma male's ability to deliver again and again builds a quiet kind of power, one that doesn't need loud affirmation or applause. It's his reliability, not his words, that people remember. Over time, this dependability creates a gravitational field of trust around him. Colleagues rely on him without hesitation, friends confide in him, and even skeptics watch closely, trying to understand why he never seems to falter. Ironically, his calm consistency can make others uneasy. In a society that normalizes excuses and last-minute changes, someone who shows up every time becomes a mirror exposing how unreliable others may be. That mirror effect can stir discomfort, even resentment, because his presence reminds people of their own broken promises. This is one reason why Sigma males often appear intimidating without ever trying to be. They don't speak loudly, but their actions echo louder than most people's words. Sociologists often describe this type of influence as behavioral dominance, the kind of authority that doesn't come from rank or aggression, but from quiet competence. The Sigma male doesn't need to control anyone. He simply leads by example. His discipline, punctuality, and respect for his own standards signal strength. This consistency becomes a form of social currency, earning him respect in workplaces, relationships, and communities. People learn that when he says he'll do something, it's as good as done. In truth, his reliability is more than a personality trait. It's a philosophy. It's the belief that words matter, that integrity isn't optional, and that greatness is built on small, consistent acts. In a world where promises are easily made and easily broken, the Sigma male's quiet dependability feels rare, even revolutionary. And that quiet reliability, more than anything else, is what makes him both respected and deeply intimidating. Number 3, he sets boundaries without announcing them. Public declarations, defensive stances, and loud refusals often reveal something most people don't notice: insecurity. When a man feels the need to constantly announce his limits or defend his choices, it's usually because he fears they won't be respected otherwise. The Sigma male, however, operates on an entirely different frequency. He doesn't need to tell the world who he is. His actions do that for him. Rather than debating or explaining his boundaries, he embodies them. If someone disrespects his time, energy, or values, he quietly steps back, never chasing validation or attempting to prove a point. This calm withdrawal speaks louder than confrontation ever could. Psychology recognizes this as non-reactive confidence, a state where self-assurance is internal rather than dependent on others' approval. It's a rare quality that naturally commands respect. Over time, people come to understand that there are lines they simply don't cross with him. His boundaries aren't written or shouted, they're sensed. This silent firmness has a profound psychological effect. Humans are wired to test limits, consciously or not, to understand where they stand with others. But when someone responds with composed detachment instead of emotional reactivity, it unsettles the dynamic. The Sigma's stillness communicates strength, much like a calm lion that doesn't need to roar to assert dominance. Studies in social behavior confirm that individuals who demonstrate quiet confidence are often perceived as more powerful and competent. Their restraint suggests control, and control, especially emotional control, is deeply intimidating. What makes this so magnetic is that the Sigma male's boundaries aren't built from arrogance, but self-respect. He's aware of his worth and energy, and he refuses to waste either on unnecessary drama. This kind of self-possession draws people in while simultaneously keeping them cautious. They sense that he is unshakable, not because he is cold, but because he knows himself. In a world obsessed with validation and noise, that inner composure feels both mysterious and powerful. Over time, the Sigma's quiet discipline shapes how others treat him. They adapt, recalibrate, and respect the invisible code he lives by. And that is the essence of true intimidation, not in loud threats or forced displays of dominance, but in the subtle, unwavering presence of a man who doesn't need to prove a thing. Number 4, his comfort in solitude becomes strength. Solitude is often mistaken for loneliness, but for the Sigma male, it is something entirely different. It's his sanctuary, a space where his thoughts expand and his energy regenerates. Unlike many who fear the silence of being alone, the Sigma male sees solitude as a tool, not a punishment. In psychology, solitude has long been linked with creativity and self-awareness. Studies from institutions like Harvard and the University of Virginia show that moments of intentional isolation can enhance focus, emotional regulation, and problem-solving ability. The Sigma male embodies this truth. When others are distracted by constant social noise, he thrives in the quiet. His solitude is not empty. It's productive, reflective, and deeply spiritual. It's in that stillness where he observes, recalibrates, and realigns with his goals. This is the secret behind his confidence. It doesn't come from applause or attention, but from understanding himself at a level few dare to explore. People often sense something different about him. He walks through life with an energy that says, "I'm complete on my own." That psychological independence subtly rewires social dynamics. When someone doesn't need validation or approval, others begin to feel drawn toward them. Not because of arrogance, but because independence is magnetic. It reflects emotional maturity, something rare in a world obsessed with external approval. Social psychologists call this the autonomy effect, the phenomenon where self-sufficient individuals naturally command respect and intrigue. This is why the Sigma male seems intimidating, not because he exudes dominance or aggression, but because his calm self-containment exposes others' dependency on external affirmation. His quiet strength reminds people of what they lack, peace with themselves. He uses solitude like an artist uses color, shaping it into insight, discipline, and purpose. In solitude, he learns, reads, trains, and reflects. He turns his inner world into a laboratory for growth. Ancient philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius echoed this mindset centuries ago, teaching that solitude was not withdrawal from life, but immersion in truth. Similarly, the Sigma male doesn't isolate to escape. He isolates to evolve. He emerges from his quiet like a sharpened blade, composed, purposeful, and aware. People call him intimidating because he doesn't chase. He attracts. He doesn't perform. He embodies. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: the very solitude that separates him from others is what ultimately makes others drawn to him. Number 5, he invests in what matters invisibly. Loud success often echoes through social media feeds, parties, and boardrooms, but it's rarely as stable as it looks. It tends to impress in the moment, yet fades when the applause stops. The Sigma male, however, plays a different game. He doesn't chase attention, he builds foundations. While others measure progress by how many people notice their achievements, he measures his by the skills he's mastered, the habits he's refined, and the inner discipline he's built quietly over time. His focus is on long-term value, not on noise, but on depth. Psychologically, this mindset aligns with the principle of delayed gratification, famously demonstrated in the Stanford marshmallow experiment, where those who could wait for a greater reward later achieved more success in life. The Sigma embodies this principle naturally. He invests energy into what compounds silently: self-control, mental clarity, and adaptability. His growth happens beneath the surface, much like roots growing unseen before a tree bursts upward. While others are broadcasting their progress, the Sigma male is perfecting his craft behind closed doors. This behavior mirrors the quiet mastery observed in high-performance individuals across fields like martial arts, chess, and entrepreneurship. They understand that consistency, not spectacle, is what turns effort into excellence. Neuroscientifically, his habits reshape neural pathways through a process known as neuroplasticity, where repetition strengthens brain connections, making him more capable and composed over time. When his results finally surface, they don't need an introduction. They speak for themselves. A calm confidence that unsettles those who rely on external validation. People who once dismissed his silence now feel uneasy in his presence because they realize he's been evolving while they were observing. His success, built on patience and discipline, exposes their distraction and dependence on recognition. This silent progress creates an aura of intimidation, not through arrogance, but through undeniable proof. It's the quiet student who surpasses the loud ones, the colleague who delivers perfection without boasting, the man who lets his life, not his words, do the talking. In the end, what intimidates others most isn't his strength, but his solitude. The fact that he doesn't need anyone to believe in him for his path to unfold. While they watched, he worked. While they spoke, he acted. And when the results arrived, they realized he'd been building an empire in silence. One habit, one decision, and one disciplined day at a time. Number 6, he remains calm when others escalate. Conflict, drama, and emotional outbursts often reveal how deeply people crave control. But ironically, the ones trying hardest to dominate are usually the least in command of themselves. The Sigma male operates on a completely different wavelength. In moments of tension where most would raise their voice or react impulsively, he pauses. That brief silence, that measured breath before he speaks or chooses not to, signals mastery. This isn't avoidance, it's strategy. Psychologists call this emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's emotional responses rather than being ruled by them. It's a rare skill, and it commands more respect than aggression ever could. When a Sigma male refuses to be provoked, he disarms the manipulator. His calm feels unnerving because it mirrors back the other person's chaos. They call it coldness, but in truth it's discipline, an unspoken lesson in power dynamics. Historically, the greatest leaders, from Marcus Aurelius to modern Stoics and thinkers, understood that self-mastery is the ultimate strength. Science backs this too. Studies in behavioral psychology show that individuals who can delay emotional reactions, make better decisions under stress, maintain stronger relationships, and project confidence effortlessly. The Sigma male's quietness isn't detachment, it's awareness. While others drown in noise, he reads the room, decodes intention, and maintains control of his emotional landscape. This ability to stay centered, even when provoked, makes him unpredictable. And unpredictability is inherently intimidating. People can't manipulate what they can't predict. That's the paradox. True control doesn't shout, it whispers. It's not about dominating others, but mastering oneself so completely that external chaos no longer dictates internal peace. And when a man reaches that level of composure, his presence alone challenges the emotional instability in others. That's the quiet intimidation of self-mastery, the kind that speaks volumes without uttering a single word. Recognizing these signs isn't about ego, it's about awareness, seeing the depth of who you are and how the world already responds to it. If you identify with these truths, you're not just moving through life. You're walking with intention, clarity, and calm power. And if you recognize someone like this, respect him. This kind of masculinity doesn't demand attention, it earns it. If you found value in this, subscribe for more. Share this with a man who walks the path quietly. Remember, being intimidating isn't about force. It's about alignment so deep that the world naturally adjusts. Having said this, there's a quiet paradox about the Sigma male. He walks alone, not because he dislikes people, but because solitude sharpens his clarity. He speaks little, not because he lacks opinions, but because he measures every word like a craftsman weighing gold. And yet, the world rarely understands this kind of man. At first, people are drawn to him. They admire the way he moves through life without needing validation. They feel inspired by his self-discipline, his independence and the calm confidence that doesn't demand attention. But then something strange happens. Admiration begins to shift into unease. Curiosity turns into criticism, and respect quietly morphs into resentment. Why does this happen? Why do people who once admired the Sigma male's mystery eventually begin to dislike, even hate, the same qualities they praised before? The answer lies deep within human psychology. We live in a world wired for conformity, where most people feel comfortable when others act in predictable ways. But Sigma males are unpredictable. They move by their own code, not society's rhythm. That difference disturbs the emotional equilibrium of those around them. It's not that Sigma males intend to provoke discomfort. They simply embody autonomy in a world addicted to approval. Research in social psychology calls this status incongruence. When someone doesn't fit the expected social role, others subconsciously react with resistance or envy. It's the same reason the quiet student who excels without trying is disliked, or the colleague who never participates in gossip becomes the target of it. The Sigma doesn't fit the social mold, and that alone triggers insecurity in others. But this story isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because when you understand why people project negativity towards strength, silence, and independence, you stop taking it personally. You realize their reaction isn't about you, it's about what you represent. You remind them of the freedom they lost. Let's explore the deeper truths, the 6 silent reasons people suddenly start hating Sigma males. Number 1, your independence threatens their control. In most social groups, control doesn't always announce itself with force. It disguises itself as concern. I'm just worried about you. I think you should do this instead. Or, are you sure that's a good idea? On the surface, these words sound caring, but beneath them often lies a subtle desire to direct another person's choices. This isn't always malicious, it's psychological. Humans crave predictability. Studies in social psychology show that predictability gives people a sense of safety and belonging. When someone's actions are easy to anticipate, the group feels stable. But when a person breaks that pattern, when they act on independent thought rather than collective expectation, it triggers discomfort and even silent resistance. This is where the Sigma male stands apart. His decisions are guided by instinct and purpose, not approval. He doesn't explain every move or seek consensus before acting. In psychology, this level of autonomy is associated with internal locus of control, the belief that one's life outcomes depend on personal choices, not external validation. It's the opposite of what many in society unconsciously live by. Because most people operate from an external locus of control, depending on others' opinions for a sense of direction or worth, they find Sigma independence unsettling. When a Sigma male declines manipulation, be it emotional guilt, peer pressure, or subtle control, he holds up a mirror to others' dependence. That reflection can sting. It reveals how much they've been living for approval, rather than authenticity. This cognitive dissonance, the clash between how people see themselves and the truth reflected back, often transforms into resentment. It's easier to label the Sigma as arrogant, cold, or difficult than to confront one's own insecurity. Sociologically, such behavior disrupts group hierarchy. Every social circle has unspoken norms and power dynamics designed to maintain cohesion. The Sigma, by refusing to conform, quietly rewrites those rules. His detachment from validation erodes the invisible chains of control that others use to maintain influence. What looks like rebellion is actually self-mastery, a kind of psychological sovereignty that few attain. In essence, the Sigma's calm resistance to being controlled isn't defiance, it's alignment. It's living from conviction instead of compliance. And while that autonomy may unsettle those who fear unpredictability, it also commands respect, because deep down everyone wishes they were that free. Number 2, your silence feels like judgment. When a Sigma male speaks less, the world often fills the silence for him. People start projecting their own insecurities, doubts, and assumptions into the quiet he creates. They imagine judgment where there is none, arrogance where there is only focus, and mystery where there is simply peace. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as projection, a defense mechanism where individuals attribute their own feelings or insecurities to someone else. When the Sigma male chooses silence, he unknowingly becomes a mirror, reflecting others' inner worlds back to them. Those who are uncomfortable with themselves interpret his calm observation as disapproval or superiority because they are unfamiliar with the strength of stillness. In truth, the Sigma's silence is not an act of judgment, but conservation. He understands that words carry energy and that constant talking drains both mental and emotional resources. Neuroscience shows that silence helps the brain regenerate neurons in the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and learning. By speaking less, the Sigma maintains mental clarity and emotional stability, filtering unnecessary noise that clutters most people's minds. His quietness is a conscious decision to guard his focus, allowing him to observe patterns others miss. This reflective behavior aligns with the principles of Stoicism, a philosophy that values self-control, discipline, and understanding before reaction. However, in a modern world obsessed with constant communication and validation, silence has become almost threatening. Social psychology refers to this discomfort as the social silence effect, where people feel uneasy when no verbal feedback is given. They assume disinterest or superiority when in fact it's simply composure. The Sigma's calm demeanor disrupts this social rhythm. His restraint challenges the unspoken rule that everyone must constantly prove engagement. While most use words to gain approval, the Sigma uses silence to maintain authenticity. Ironically, this quiet strength often amplifies his presence. Studies on charisma and nonverbal communication show that people who speak less but with intention are perceived as more competent and confident. Their pauses create weight. Their stillness commands attention. A Sigma's silence, therefore, is not emptiness. It's precision. It's how he filters chaos, protects peace, and communicates control without a word. In a noisy world, his quiet becomes power, and that power, misunderstood by many, is what makes people uneasy. Number 3, your self-respect makes others question theirs. Sigma males possess an invisible strength that doesn't require explanation, a silent power rooted in their boundaries. These boundaries aren't drawn with loud declarations or social media posts about cutting people off. They've lived quietly and consistently. A Sigma male doesn't need to argue or prove his worth when faced with disrespect, manipulation, or unnecessary drama. He simply walks away, not to punish anyone, but to protect his peace. This detachment confuses many because we live in a world that glorifies reaction. People expect confrontation, validation, or emotional chaos. But the Sigma operates on a higher emotional frequency, where stillness speaks louder than shouting. Psychologically, this behavior reflects what experts call emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's inner state without external validation. Studies in emotional intelligence suggest that people with strong self-regulation handle conflicts by disengaging rather than escalating. Sigma males embody this. Their refusal to engage in drama isn't avoidance, it's discipline. By choosing silence over argument, they maintain control over their emotions and energy. This restraint makes others uncomfortable, especially those addicted to attention and chaos. The Sigma's calm feels like rejection to emotionally reactive individuals who equate loudness with care. When he walks away, the silence he leaves behind becomes a mirror. It forces people to face their own immaturity, insecurity, and lack of self-control. Instead of learning from it, many respond defensively, calling him cold, arrogant, or emotionless. But what they label as arrogance is often self-respect, and what they call coldness is clarity. The Sigma's boundaries remind others that peace is not negotiable. He doesn't stay where he's merely tolerated, and he doesn't argue with people committed to misunderstanding him. Sociologically, this trait aligns with low social dependency, a characteristic of individuals who derive satisfaction internally rather than from group approval. It's what makes the Sigma appear mysterious and intimidating. His absence feels heavier than most people's presence because it carries intention, and that intention to protect his focus, peace, and growth is what sets him apart in a noisy world. In essence, the Sigma male's quiet withdrawal isn't a sign of arrogance, it's the highest form of self-command. While others exhaust themselves proving points, he preserves his power in silence. And that silence, disciplined and deliberate, becomes his loudest statement, one that says, "My peace is not up for negotiation." Number 4, your focus exposes their distractions. While others chase attention, the Sigma quietly builds his goals, his craft, his peace. This quiet focus often becomes the most unsettling thing for those around him, not because he flaunts success, but because his progress exposes what others have neglected within themselves. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as upward comparison, a term from social comparison theory first introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954. It describes the discomfort people feel when they measure themselves against someone they perceive as doing better in career, relationships, self-control, or even inner peace. When others see the Sigma advancing without validation or applause, it challenges their belief that attention and recognition are the pathways to progress. His independence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their dependency on approval. What makes this so fascinating is how the Sigma's silence amplifies his presence. In social psychology, there's something called the observer effect. People tend to project their insecurities onto those who remain emotionally neutral. Because the Sigma doesn't explain himself, Others are forced to interpret his quiet through their own lens. If they feel inadequate, they perceive arrogance. If they crave validation, they sense rejection. His lack of need for external acknowledgement creates a psychological imbalance in group dynamics. It breaks the unspoken social rule that success should be visible and socially negotiated. The Sigma doesn't compete out loud. He competes only with yesterday's version of himself. This is where his power truly lies. While many spread their energy across social media impressions, workplace politics, or social approval loops, the Sigma channels his energy inward. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies show that deep work and sustained focus activate the brain's prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, self-control, and creative problem-solving. Over time, this mental discipline compounds into what psychologists call flow state mastery. The ability to lose oneself completely in purposeful action. And so, as others exhaust themselves seeking to be seen, the Sigma's quiet consistency becomes his statement. He doesn't announce growth. He becomes it. The irony is that his peace, the very thing he builds privately, often disturbs those still addicted to noise. Yet in that disturbance lies his silent triumph. Because the moment people start feeling uneasy about your calm, it's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof that your self-mastery is working. Number 5, your authenticity breaks social illusions. Sigma males don't fake charm or adopt group identities. They show up real, even when it's unpopular. This trait makes them stand out in a world where many people wear social masks to fit in. Authenticity for them isn't a performance, it's a principle. They aren't interested in adjusting their personality to please a crowd or bending their morals to gain approval. They'd rather walk alone in truth than stand in a crowd built on illusion. Psychologically, this is tied to what researchers call self-congruence, the alignment between one's internal values and external behavior. Studies in personality psychology show that people who live in high self-congruence experience less stress and greater life satisfaction, but they also tend to face more social resistance. Why? Because authenticity exposes inauthenticity. When a Sigma male walks into a room, he doesn't play the social games that others rely on. He doesn't flatter to get favors or echo popular opinions to blend in. His calm detachment, his refusal to fake interest or join in shallow trends, these things quietly challenge the status quo. His presence becomes a mirror that reflects everyone else's pretense. And that's why authenticity, while magnetic, can also be confronting. It makes people question their own motives, their own masks. Some admire it, others feel threatened by it. Authentic people subconsciously remind others of the parts of themselves they've buried to be accepted. Sociologists note that modern culture thrives on image. The curated versions of ourselves presented through social media, fashion, and trends. We live in what Irving Goffman called the presentation of self, a kind of performance meant to earn social rewards. Sigma males, however, reject this unspoken performance economy. They communicate directly, act with self-control, and aren't afraid to stand in their truth even when it costs them popularity. That level of independence is rare, and it unsettles those who depend on collective validation for their identity. In essence, Sigma authenticity is a quiet rebellion against the artificial. It's not arrogance or defiance, it's inner alignment. They're not trying to be different, they're simply not trying to be the same. Their power lies in being unedited in a world that rewards imitation. People may not always understand it, but deep down they feel it. And that's why, even when society resists them, their presence lingers, like an echo of truth in a room full of noise. Number 6, your calm cannot be manipulated. Emotional stability is one of the rarest forms of power a man can possess. It's not the kind of strength that shouts or boasts. It's the quiet force that disarms chaos. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain calm, you've already won. In that moment, they realize they have no control over your inner world, and that realization unsettles them. Most people operate on emotional triggers. They thrive on reaction because reaction equals validation. When you deny them that emotional fuel, they feel powerless, and powerless people often resort to resentment. This is why emotionally grounded men are sometimes misunderstood or even disliked. Their calmness exposes others' lack of control. Psychologically, this ties into what's known as the locus of control. People with an internal locus of control, like the Sigma male, believe they're responsible for their responses, not their circumstances. They don't hand over emotional authority to others. Instead of reacting impulsively, they pause, observe, and decide. This pause isn't weakness, it's a strategic gap where emotional intelligence takes over. Neuroscience even supports this idea. Studies show that when we practice emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, overrides the amygdala, the emotional center. That's the biology of composure in action. But the Sigma's calm doesn't come from detachment or coldness. It's not that he feels nothing, it's that he has learned to master what he feels. He channels emotion like a craftsman controls fire, enough to forge strength, but never so much that it consumes him. This mastery gives him presence. People sense it in his tone, his timing, and his eyes that don't flinch when challenged. And because he doesn't waste energy reacting to every provocation, he directs that same energy into growth, purpose, and clarity. This is the real secret of his power. He owns his reactions, and therefore he owns himself. In a world that profits from outrage and impulsive behavior, emotional stability is rebellion. It's the mark of a man who refuses to be manipulated by people, by society, or by his own impulses. When the world is noisy, he remains centered. When others are ruled by ego, he is ruled by discipline. And that ultimately is why emotional stability isn't just peace, it's power. So if people begin to dislike you for your peace, your discipline, your independence, let them. Their reaction is proof you've become what they secretly wish to be. Free, self-defined, and untouchable. Never dim your presence to make others comfortable. Stay grounded in quiet strength. That is the true nature of a Sigma male.